right? Our roots are planted, and that's great. But sooner or later, to borrow from Macbeth, Shakespeare's play, the tree's got to jump out the ground and march up the hill on Dunsinane, right? Have we not groveled here? It's only use of all of these grass. The only time that word gets used here long enough, eating and drinking like mere brutes. Do you remember Hamlet's soliloquy in 4:4? Go back and take a look at our comments there, where Hamlet is thinking, I mean, is it just that we're just to be like cows in a field? Surely we got to be more than just cows in a field, right? Mere brutes. Have we not? Now, I think Whitman is smiling as he plays this game. Have we not darkened and dazed ourselves? You'll remember darkened from Year That Trembled and Reeled. And dazed ourselves, by the way, some of you will go, whoa, is this where dazed and confused came from for Led Zeppelin? Well, I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, Whitman's stuff was very influential for the thinkers of the 60s and 70s. But notice, dazed only used one time in all Leaves of Grass, and it's right here, right now. Have we not darkened and dazed ourselves with books long enough? Now, I find this fascinating, and it does take us back. You'll remember the song of the Open Road 15, leave the book on the shelf unopened. Now, what's ironic about this? Well, obviously a teacher teaching a poem where you got to leave the books behind. In other words, what is it that Whitman is saying? Because obviously we're reading a book as we're told to leave the book, right? But obviously the point here is it's time to move beyond the words. It's time to actually begin to live a certain quality of life. You can read about it all you want to, but sooner or later, what? Well, you gotta face your fears, and you gotta go for the journey. And that journey, he noticed, will be an exciting moment. Sail forth, he says. Steer, now this is cool, steer for the deep waters only. Do you remember what he says in passage 46? I will you to be a bold swimmer, to jump off in the midst of the sea, dash with the hair, laughingly dash with the hair and nod to me. In other words, we're not going to stay close to the side. No. We're jumping out in the deep end. And some of you have said this. It's one thing to read a poem of Leaves of Grass. Maybe to read 10 or 15 poems of Leaves of Grass. Man, it's something to be able to sit down and say, you read every single poem of Leaves of Grass right up to this moment in time. But what's it all been worth? So you've been reading all these poems, but what's it been for? He says, it's time. It's time to go out into the deep waters. Notice, only the deep waters. Reckless. It's an interesting word because we're going to, play that game of taking risk here in a second. Reckless, O soul. Exploring. I with thee and thou with me. In other words, I'm not alone. I got my soul that goes with me. For we are bound where mariner has not yet dared to go. We'll get daring joy here in a few moments. That again, this idea of daring, right? And you'll remember as I ebbed with the ocean of life too, I have dared to open my mouth. That idea of daring, that idea of risk-taking. To speak of it, look at the next line. And we will risk the ship, ourselves, and all. You'll remember this use of the word risk in Banner at Daybreak. Risk and defy everything. The idea of taking on the challenge. And I think in the end, this is why Whitman continues to be the greatest poet of them all. Because he continues to challenge us to risk everything, to do it, to go. And then he finishes with a set of 4 lines that will play the game of O. O, brave soul. O, farther, farther. We're going to get 5 of these farthers, right? Farther, farther, sail. Keep going, keep going, keep going. O, daring joy. And it hits us that the word joy has been used so regularly in Leaves of Grass. Of course, it makes sense because he's in the tradition of Jefferson and that precious document, the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of joy. Scooby Snacks, happiness, right? So he'll come back to it. Daring joy, but safe. It's interesting that he uses this word safe at this moment. Song of Myself, passage 10, you'll remember it's a safe spot, but safe. And then he asks that rhetorical question, are they not all the seas of God? In other words, no matter where you sail, you're going to be protected, he says. You'll always be okay. You're always fine. And then he'll finish with the Trinity. There's been so many of these threes throughout this poem, and obviously Leaves of Grass, that we begin to realize, oh, something's going on intentionally here. Oh, farther, 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 sail. Well, if you're going to be moved by any language, it's got to be something like this that picks you up from where you are and says, it's time to go. It's time to go. At 2a, just to finish now, well, what are we going to say about a message from this part of our reading? Well, I think his argument is that life is this process of facing our fears, sailing out into the deep waters only, and finding that once we're there, no, we're okay. We're safe. It's all okay. It's all okay. At 2b, I love the repetitions of 25 exclamation points, the word "oh" being used 31 total times. I find that remarkable. At 3a, so many comparisons to titles here. Obviously, the Bhagavad Gita comes to mind. Think about what he says in Gita 2. You have the right to work, but for the work's sake only. You have no right to the fruits of your labor. Desire for the fruits must ever be your motive in working. Never give way to laziness either. We've commented elsewhere on how those set of lines are so compelling as a means of going on this passage. Or think about Thoreau's Walden. We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn that does not forsake us in our sound asleep. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of a man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. And we have said in our lectures, of course, on Walden, that to comprehend eternity in each moment is freedom, and that freedom is faith. And I think Whitman would certainly argue that as much in Passage to India. Of course, Tennyson's Ulysses, there's just so many places that we could make those connections, but certainly there, as we have said, right, how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life. Life piled on life for all too little, and of one to me, little remains. Every hour is saved from that eternal silence something more, a bringer of new things, and vile it were for some 3 sons to store and hoard myself, and this gray spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star, beyond the utmost bounds of human thought. That set of lines plays beautifully, I think, with Passage to India. And then, of course, think about Yeats's Sailing to Byzantium. I think that brilliant poem that we've given full treatment of all these poems at learnstrong.net. But that is no country for old men, he says, the young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing, for every tatter in its mortal dress. Therefore I've sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. I think that for sure we could make those connections, and you could probably write down a whole bunch more of those connections as well. Well, finally, at 3b. If we're doing anything with this study, it's got to be at this 3b element, right? How do we own it? How do we make it personal? How does the passage become our passage? And I think one of the obvious questions is one that I would ask to you. What are you daring? What are you risking for your intellectual, spiritual growth? And is it probably time to say, I can wait no longer? It's time. Let's go. Let's get up. I got to go on this journey. I got to find the deepest waters, and I got to go out there, and it's all going to be okay, because they're all the waters of God, as Whitman says. And to what degree is your study of Leaves of Grass helping to, in some ways, change you, develop you, challenge you? I hope that our work here is helping you. Well, when you finish with Passage to India, you now have 152 poems left. The next poem is going to be an interesting follow-up, because it's going to be a poem, a tribute, a dramatic monologue, a tribute to Christopher Columbus, which again is going to trouble us, as so many passages in Leaves of Grass have already, because culturally, Whitman is going to have a view of Columbus that most of us probably struggle with today, and yet, we'll take a look at it and try and grow from it, and of course, we're on our way, passage to the end of this thing at 152 poems left. Thank you.